IO. And then this is just some information about how you use data loader and how do you look up IDs and data mapping. So feel free to jump into these sections to learn more about how data loader works. But for now, we're just going to launch it. So click the launch button in the upper right-hand side, and it's going to take you to the Data Loader IO website. So the difference between the Data Loader IO and the Apex Data Loader that we've been using is the Apex Data Loader is a standalone tool that's installed on your computer. Remember, we went through all those steps in the Zulu app and all that craziness, right? And now they have, and then this one here, it's like Salesforce. It's cloud-based, right? So you don't have to install anything on your computer. You just go and you log in to your Salesforce org from the dataloader.io website. So then on the upper right-hand side, just hit login with Salesforce and then put in your credentials. Don't worry about I have a custom Salesforce domain because we didn't create custom Salesforce domains. So don't worry about that. Just go make sure it says environment production, agree to the terms, and then hit login. And then from here, you can log in. I'm logged into a different org, but just make sure that you're logged into your case study org. And then you have to allow access. You have to give the data loader access to your case study org. So click allow. And then this is the tool. When you land on this page, there are video recordings here that teach you how to do everything. So if you haven't already used this tool, I would suggest that you guys go ahead and look through all of these videos and take some notes on how to use it. You can also read the documentation. But the Data Loader IO is super simple to use. It's a lot more simple to use than Apex Data Loader. Like I mentioned to you guys before, I use the Apex Data Loader because I've been using it for 10 years. So for me, I just have my processes in place. But if you are new to Salesforce, there is a lot more functionality in Data Loader IO, and it makes it a lot easier. So I would suggest, while you guys are learning, to use this tool.
Selena, question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if they let you save your mappings?
So I think they do if you have a paid version.
Oh.
But the great thing about Data Loader IO is that the mappings populate automatically a lot better than the Apex Data Loader. Like the Apex Data Loader won't pick up certain maps. This Data Loader will actually pick up your mapping even if it's not exactly the same. Like it'll make a suggestion. So it's a lot more easier to map on this one anyway. So even if you can't save your map, because that's what I was doing this morning. I was like, how do you save the maps? But I think that you have to have the paid version to save the map, but I'm not really sure. I haven't used this in a while, so I was just using it last night and this morning. So if you hit new task, here are your options. You can import, you can export, and you can delete. And then we can also look at this update to see what it does. Maybe it'll tell us here. So we can do 10,000 a month. Limited task, 10 megabytes, export related objects, drop top, SFPT, Salesforce connection. Yeah, it doesn't say here, but I'm sure we could look it up in the documentation, Cynthia. If we hit new task and we go import, just like Salesforce is going to initialize, right, and ask us what object we want to upload to. So I'm going to stop here for a second and we'll do that in a second, but I want to go back to Farah's issue. So Farah, do you want to share your screen and we can take a look at what was in Salesforce? Because I think what we're going to need to do is just delete everything that you uploaded, which sounds like you already did. But if you didn't, we'll delete it again using the Data Loader IO. And then we'll go back and double check our record mappings and then make sure the data file is not corrupted. And then we'll re-upload it.
Okay. I'm gonna wait until you're done sharing so I can.
Okay.
See, that was my final conclusion after we kind of end our call, that maybe her data file was corrupted.
Yeah.
We did an import and it came up at 0, empty a couple of times. I'm like, what's going on?
What was the error message you guys were getting?
We didn't get any error message.
We didn't get it. It just was blank.
Oh, okay.
It said it loaded successfully. So we got actual record IDs, but when you went to go click in the record, it showed it was empty.
Okay. All right. Well, let's take a look at it. You can share your screen now.
Okay.
And while Farah's doing that, does anyone else has anyone? Okay.
Then when we did it again, we had 1 and then 2 more, and then all the other ones were in accessories.
Did you? So we need to delete this. That's first.
Yeah.
Let's go to. You have the file. Did you export? How many? Can you go back to Salesforce? I just want to see how many records are in here. So it says 29.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to take these out first.
Yes.
Okay. So
I'll export them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna run the report first, right?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. You need to go to you need to go to the app launcher.
Yeah.
And then reports and all items.
Yeah.
And then create a report. So remember, guys, when you're trying to delete records that are in Salesforce, you need the ID. That's why we're going into Salesforce. So you want to go.
I have this one here.
Yep, click on it. We can use that one as long as it's in. Because right now we're in her inventory item, inventory object, because we want the inventory IDs so we can delete the bad records. So see, there's 29. If you look on the upper left-hand side, there's 29 records. All Salesforce needs to do a delete is column B, that inventory ID. One of the other things that I want to say is Salesforce, Excel can't read, like Excel is not case sensitive. So if you look at your column in column B, that's the 15-digit ID, right? That should be 15 digits. What you actually should be using to do your data uploads is the 18-digit unique ID, because when you're doing manipulations in Excel, you can run into an issue with the ID. So I'm going to show you guys how to make sure you're using the right IDs when you're deleting or updating data. So let's go back to your inventory object. Go to setup and edit object. Inventory. And then go to fields and relationships. So there are 2 IDs. There's a 15-digit ID, and then Salesforce has an 18-digit ID that allows for us to override the fact that Excel doesn't have, Excel is not case sensitive, so it can't tell if the ID is uppercase S, lowercase s, right? It'll treat it the same. So you want to create a real unique ID. I know it sounds confusing, but the way to create an 18-digit ID on a record is to hit new. There's a formula for it, and it's called case safe ID. So this will make sure that you don't run into any case issues. So what I normally do when I start a new Salesforce org is I create a case safe ID on all of my primary objects that are in Salesforce that I'm going to be uploading data to. So I create a case safe ID on opportunity, on accounts, on contacts, just so I don't ever run it. I never use that 15-digit ID to do my data updates and deletes. So let's hit formula. And then this is just a formula for you guys to remember. So you can write it down somewhere. You will use it a million times, as I have. And you use it primarily when you're updating or deleting data in Salesforce. So here on the field label, you want to name it inventory case safe ID.
Case safe?
Yep, SAFE ID. And then just click in the field name and then go to text.
Sorry, I'm writing as I'm doing this with you.
Okay.
Sorry.
So just remember when you're doing your updates,
Oh, we didn't select something.
select text.
Text.
Just remember, you can screenshot this page if you need to. But remember when we're doing our data updates or deletes, we always want to use the 18-digit ID. So here, now we're writing a formula. So in this inventory case safe ID box, the big box in the middle, all you're going to do, it's a very simple formula. You're going to type in one word, case safe ID, no spaces. And then in parentheses, you're going to put the word ID. And then hit next. That's the formula, case safe ID, ID. Here, you can make it invisible to everyone except the system admin, because the system admin is the only person that would ever use this ID, because you only use it when you're updating data. So on the visible column on the left-hand side, check the top box, and then uncheck it. Check it again. And now go down to system admin and just make it available to system admin. Now, it's not going to hurt anybody if you make it available to everyone. It's just going to put an extra field on their page layout that they don't need, that they're never going to use. So that's why I'm saying just remove it from their view. They don't need it.
Okay.
And then hit next. And then here, because we're using this as system admins, I want to see it on the page layout. So if we run into any errors, we can check our data. So let's leave it on both the accessory and inventory page layout and hit save. Now let's go back to your report that we were building. Okay, refresh the page. Okay, now hit edit. Remove your 15-digit ID and add the one we just created. So you got to hit edit first. Yeah, take out column A and B. You don't need either one of those.
Okay.
You don't really need any of these. Actually, just go to columns and remove all columns.
And remove all of them?
Yeah, because we don't need any of those columns. All we need is case safe ID. Okay. Now hit save and run. Or hit run, whatever, if you don't want to save this, because you had all your other settings on it. Click the drop down and export this. And export it as a CSV. So a lot of times when I'm doing an export, because I want to do a delete, I would usually put the name in here, so I make sure I'm deleting the right records. But because I know we're only deleting 29 records on this really small object, and I know I'm taking everything out, that's why I only pulled out the ID. Because we really only, for this one, we only really need the ID. If I was, you got to be very, very careful when you're batch deleting data from Salesforce. So whenever I'm running a report and I'm batch deleting records from Salesforce, I would usually put a couple of columns in here, like the inventory case safe ID, and then I'm going to mute you, Nicholas. Nikolai. And Mohammed. And so if you guys are doing a delete, you want to make sure that you're deleting the right records. So I would suggest, as a best practice, you add the name of the inventory object or the contact or whatever the name of that record is. Like, put it in this column B and put other identifying rows in there, so that you just make sure that you're deleting the correct records. Now you have this file. You saved it as CSV? I didn't see it.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go back to your data.
Well, I didn't save it on Excel yet.
You don't need it. We don't need Excel. We just need a CSV.
Okay.
So go ahead to your data loader. And make sure, guys, that if you are using Salesforce, just don't use Internet Explorer. It won't work correctly. You'll hit errors, weird errors. Okay, so from here, go to New Task. And now we're going to delete those records so we can try to re-import that file. So she's selecting the object and then hitting next. and then putting her CSV file. You can drag and drop it, or you can click on it and look for it on your computer. Either one is fine.
Oh, wait, I didn't, it's not saved yet. That one.
Yeah,
I have
that's
to save it.
Yep, save that as a CSV.
I'm gonna put it on the desktop.
Mm-hmm. And remember, whenever you save a file in CSV, if you have tabs like tab 2 and 3 and 4, it only saves the first tab. So be really careful if you're working on a spreadsheet that has multiple tabs in your worksheet, because if you save it as a CSV, it's going to delete everything except the active tab, the one that you're on, like the first one. So just be careful when you're file saving an Excel file to a CSV if you're using a worksheet, a workbook that has multiple tabs.
So then would you just save each tab as its own CSV to import?
You will have to, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So now, can you go back one step? I just want to make sure we talk through the steps that you are taking. Okay, so here she uploaded her file. We can see, we just want to verify there that the name is the correct name. So that's good. And we hit next. And then here's where Salesforce is going to ask you, what is the ID of the object that you want to delete? So it's mapping our ID field to the ID field in Salesforce. And one of the things can you go back to Salesforce for a second? I just want to look at one of your inventory records. Go to your second tab, all inventory. Can you click on the first one, IMB 0028? Okay, I just wanted to look at the case safe ID. You see it here on the left-hand side? I wanted to make sure it was in the right format. Okay, go back to your data loader. So that looks good, right? See that ID looks like the ID that we just created. And then let's hit next. And then we can use, so on this page, it's just telling you what org you're connected to, what type of action you're trying to take. And then it's gonna ask you API mode. So your API mode here, it's saying use batch API with 200 records per request. So if you have like a huge giant file, you may want to use the bulk API. So then you're just going to switch from batch API to bulk API if you have a really big file. Okay, so if you're running into errors, it's not working, you don't understand what the hell's going on, just go back and select bulk API. Your file might be too big. So go ahead and hit save and run. And then run. It's just asking you, saying, are you sure? You know, we're going to change your data in Salesforce. Are you positive this is what you want to do? And you're saying yes.
Okay.
Okay, so it looks like it was good. And let's go back to Salesforce and just make sure, even though it already says 29 successes, we go back to the inventory object, that one, go click on inventory, refresh the screen. Yep, so there's nothing there. Click that drop down, click all. Why don't you pin all? So hit the little pin. Yeah, so it'll always land on this page. So there's nothing there. So all the data's gone. So now let's go back to your inventory file that was giving all the trouble. CSV file with the file with your 25 records, the Excel file.
I think it was this one.
Okay, so let's just take a look at this really quickly and make sure that everything looks okay. So the first thing I want to check is that record type ID. Let's go back to Salesforce. So it says 021 there. And let's just make sure we have the right record type ID first, because now we're troubleshooting. We don't know what's wrong with our file. We're going to have to check everything. So now we're on inventory. Let's click on the left-hand side, click record types, and hit vehicle. And then let's take a look up top at what's in the record type URL. So go all the way up to the URL where it says record types, and let's grab that number and make sure that that's the one that's in your file. So copy it.
I'm gonna add it right here to see.
Yep, that's what I would do. And so it looks like it is right, but let's copy it. Let's take the one that you just put there, put it in row 2 and drag it down. And remember, guys, if your record type ID ends with a number, you can't just simply drag it down, right? Because it's going to change the last number into, like, if the last number is 1, it's going to make the next one 2, the next one 3, the next one 4. So you can't simply drag it down.
So I can delete all these and just do it over.
No, I would just highlight
leave
number
it?
1, highlight the second one, put your cursor on the second one, number 2, yep, and then grab the little fill handle, that on the right, yep, right there, until you get a plus sign and drag it down. And now let's look at the other roles. So the type role looks correct, the data there looks correct, the Acura looks correct, the models look correct, sedan, SUV, that's correct. The colors, do these colors exist in your Salesforce org?
Hi, Selena, I just have a quick question. Isn't the record type unique for each record?
No, the record type is not unique for each record. The record type ID is just what type of record is it in Salesforce. Because remember, like, even though that we're system admins and we don't write any code, right? None of us write code. You are still using a coded platform, right? So even though you guys are not specifically sitting there and writing computer programming language, you kind of are manipulating computer programming language, right? Because we are still system admins. Now, when you are using a data file like the one that we're looking at right now, Salesforce can't read this, right? Salesforce doesn't read English. Salesforce reads computer programming language, Apex, right? So like it needs to be in a format that Salesforce can understand, especially when it's lookup values, like record type ID. Right, so let's go to Salesforce really quickly because I want to make sure you guys understand why the record type ID is the same for all of the records that we're uploading. They're not always going to be the same. It just depends on what you're uploading in your file. So let's go to the inventory object. So click your second tab. All the way in top. Yep, right there. Now let's go to new. Hit new. If we were to manually enter a record in Salesforce and we go to inventory and we hit new, we're going to get 2 record types, right? Because we only have 2 types of inventory. We have accessories and we have vehicles. So what is the, like, can anybody answer the question, like, why are we even doing a batch upload when we can go and create a record right here? Who knows the answer to that?
It's fast.
It's faster when we're working with big files with a lot of data. It's the volume. Yes, Andrew. Right? The volume. If I had to, like, this week I uploaded 10,000 records in Salesforce. If I had to manually one by one enter those 10,000 records, I'd probably be here to well past my 40th birthday, right? Because it would take me eons to finish it.
Yeah.
So we don't want to do that. We want to use the bulk data importer because we want to quickly get a whole bunch of records in Salesforce. But Salesforce doesn't know English. Salesforce doesn't know that the record in my file is an accessory or it's a vehicle. It has no idea it's a computer. It doesn't even know what a car is, right? You have to tell it. So every time you create something in Salesforce, including record types, like what we're looking at right now, these record types have associated ID numbers, unique ID numbers, so that when we're doing a batch update, we need to tell Salesforce in that file what kind of record we're updating. Because if we go back to your file, your Excel file, Farah, Salesforce is like, okay, you want to put new Acuras into Salesforce? Great. What's the record type ID? What am I uploading? Because Salesforce doesn't know if this is a car or an accessory. The only way it's going to know is by you coding that record type ID. So even though we're not developers, we still have to be able to tell the computer what it needs to know to upload our data. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you guys understand why all of these records have the same record type ID?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Secondarily, this is just a very simplified example of what you would encounter in the real world, right? If you are uploading, you might have a file that has inventory and accessories. So if Farah was to add 10 accessory items to this file, what would the record type ID need to be? Anybody know?
Yeah, the accessory.
What did you say?
accessory record
Yes.
type ID. Okay.
Yep. Right? Because Salesforce needs to know what you're uploading. And the reason, there's another reason why this is all important. When we created our record types, let's go back to Salesforce, Farah, so we can look at it. All right, let's hit new. Let's hit accessory and new and next. And let's look at this page layout. This is our page layout for inventory items. Oh, yours is not edited yet. Mine is edited, and that's what we're going to work on today. When you hit the new accessory item, you should only see the fields that are relevant to accessories. So right now, our page, we didn't edit this page. I did it in my org because I wanted to walk you guys through it, but we're going to work on that in a little bit. All of these fields on the features and some of the ones in the inventory information make absolutely no sense for an accessory item. Accessory items don't have sunroofs and moonroofs. They don't have makes and models, right? So we need to take some of these fields off of this page layout so we don't confuse our end users. When our end users,
Is that the record type page layout?
the record type is associated with a page layout. So that's why, remember when we were creating our record types and we were assigning page layouts to the record types?
Yes.
That's what you do in Salesforce. When you create a record type, you need to tell Salesforce, when someone clicks on this record type, what do we want them to see? Right? Because we're splicing up the data that they're able to see. So when we click accessory, we probably should only see the description and the quantity and the name, right? That's all we need. Because none of these fields on here, and the price, obviously, none of these other fields matter. So we're going to go and clean up that page layout later. But for now, this is all that we need to see. And so that's another reason why that record type ID becomes important, because if you accidentally, like Farah did, accidentally upload a vehicle as an accessory record type, they're not going to see all the fields they need to see, the end user. The fields will be in Salesforce, but they're going to be hidden because those fields are not on the page layout. So that's what happens if you make a mistake and you add the wrong record type ID. So let's continue walking through it, and then we'll clean up this page layout, and we'll see how it all comes together. So let's go back to our Excel file. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just checking. So, all right, the next piece is that
The color.
we need to make sure, one thing that Salesforce does is Salesforce, you have to the reason why people come to Salesforce is because a lot of companies have 1 million Excel files, paper files, and all kind of stuff that's unstructured. People come to Salesforce because they want to structure their data so they can report on it, right? You can't report on unstructured data. Like, say, for instance, I wanted to run a report of a school, and I want to know how many girls are in the school and how many boys are in the school. What do I need to do? I need to build a report that tells me what? Does anybody know? What kind of data do I need if I want to run a report of a school and I want to know how many girls and how many boys are in the class, in the school? What do I need to know about those
You need
kids?
to know.
Student IDs.
What?
I'll say
Student
you
ID.
need.
No, we don't. Don't think about Salesforce. We don't need ID. What do we need to know about a person? What do we need to know about people in order to know how many girls and boys we have in the school?
Gender.
We need to know their gender, right?
Yes.
So I need a report that tells me male versus female, right? Now, I can't run a report if I have different staff members making lists of students, and some are writing M and F, and some are writing male written out, and some are writing female written out, and some of them are misspelling it and writing MLAE, right? And like, we can't run a report with all that dirty data. We need to fix it. We need to standardize it, which is why pick lists become important. Pick lists restrict what the user can put in that field. So they can't misspell male and female because they have to actually pick it from a drop-down list. They can't make a mistake. There's no chance of them making a mistake, right? So that's why when I'm looking at Farah's file here, the first thing I want to make sure is that this file respects the rules that we created in Salesforce. So the first thing we're going to do, I just quickly looked at type, that looks okay, make looks okay, model looks okay, body style looks okay. When I say it looks okay, I mean that the values in her file that are in rows 2 through 25 all match the type of data that we set up in Salesforce. Because in Salesforce, we created a pick list for make, and one of the values is Acura. We created a pick list for model, and the values were TLX, RDX, MDX. And we created a field for body style, and the pick list values were sedan, SUV, and whatever other crap you put in it. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're not speaking, just put your mic on mute. Not you, Farah, because we're talking. And so what the next thing I'm going to do is color, because I don't know what colors she has. So let's go back to Salesforce and verify that those values exist in Salesforce. Because
I think I saw the problem. I don't think they exist.
yeah, because if they don't exist, guess what? Your file will error out because you need to respect the rules that are in Salesforce. They're there for a reason. We don't want people willy-nilly just entering whatever they want. So let's go to our inventory object, the back end. I think it's that third one. Yep. Let's go to fields and relationships. And let's look at the color field. So in the quick find, type in color. Oh, there it is right there. And let's look at the values. You see her values?
Mm-hmm.
So this is what we're going to do. Click printable view on the bottom, printable view. There's like some headers there, new, reorder, replace. Go where your values are.
Values.
Yep. Now there's some headers right on the top. It says new.
Yep.
Order. Yep. Go to printable view. That just allows you to copy the values. Now copy those values. Like highlight them and Control C or whatever. Copy it. Copy all of them.
So question, so if we didn't get an error saying that field didn't match up.
Yeah, because when you are hitting errors with Salesforce, it only throws you one error at a time. So it would have still eventually errored out because that's a pick list field. And if you look, you see where it says pick list copy that real quick and then close that screen so I can show you guys something.
It didn't error out. That's the thing. It didn't error out.
Right, but what we're doing right now is we're going through the process of troubleshooting. And when we troubleshoot, we fix everything that we find wrong from the beginning because you never know what Salesforce is going to throw an error for, right? So the only thing that we can do is like we go through the steps as a problem solver because system admins are problem solvers, right? What we need to do is we need to make sure we dot all of our I's and cross all of our T's to ensure that our data migration goes in. And that's why people who are system admins are super detail oriented. Like people who just brush over things and don't check their work and just submit crap, they will never make it in this industry, right? Because system admins have to be super detail oriented. And this is a part of why that skill set is so important. And it's great for you guys to know that because when you're interviewing with managers, they'll ask you that, right? Like, what do you do to make sure that, blah, blah, blah? Well, I'm a super detail oriented person. And if I run into an issue, I don't take the error message at face value. I check all of my work to make sure that it's done right from beginning to end. That's a great answer to an interview question, right? That's what I want people to tell me when I'm interviewing them, that they're checking their work and they know how to go through the normal channels of what it takes to check your work. So let's take a look at this screen because I want to make sure you guys know how to read this screen.
No, Selena, what I'm saying is when we did the import, it didn't throw any errors.
It just gave us a bunch of blank.
Correct.
That's the thing.
What I'm saying is that in Salesforce, there are times where the error that you see or don't see is not as obvious as you think it should be. And I know this because I've spent a week doing data migrations and running into errors and troubleshooting with Salesforce and the developer team to figure it out. And some of the errors I was getting was not what I expected. So what I'm saying to you guys is you never know what the error is going to be or not be. The files don't go, it doesn't upload. Nothing we can do about any of that except first, make sure our file and everything that we are doing is completely accurate. And then once we have that, then we can move on to the next step. Okay, this is not working. Because it's trial and error, right? We have to fix our file. We have to go back and try it again. If it still doesn't work, we got to do the next thing. And if that still doesn't work, we got to do the next thing until we get it right. And then sometimes you end up having to log a ticket with Salesforce and walk through it with customer support. And that's called escalation. So anybody who's ever worked in tech, you know that there is a process of escalation that tickets go through. This is why. Exactly what we're doing right now is the reason why. Because sometimes you get errors that you just don't know what the hell they are. Farah and Cynthia have been working for hours trying to figure out what's wrong with the file. It wasn't throwing an error. It's not uploading. It was creating blank records. We don't know why it's doing that. So we have to go through all the normal channels. We got to delete all the records. And now we got to start from scratch, make sure the file is right, try the upload again. And if that doesn't work, we may end up having to log a ticket. But we don't know that yet. So let's just finish the process of verifying where the error might be. So I'm not saying that what you guys did is wrong. What you guys did is correct. It's just going through the escalation process. Okay, so Andrew was just mentioning that they talked about escalation in the Service Cloud webinar too. Yeah, I mean, all tech companies have a process for handling tickets and cases and escalating problems. So usually they'll, like, if you're a new person in IT and customer support, you might start out as like a tier 1 customer support rep. Tier 1 customer support rep picks up the phone and says, hey, they can handle very basic issues. But if it gets a little bit more difficult, they escalate it up a level. Now, the people who work on a level 2 case probably make a little bit more money. They might have a little bit more computer science background, right? They're paid more. So we want to use our less expensive staff to kind of figure out the low level issues, right? And then we tier it up. So organizations are able to manage their budget and their finances by creating a tiered process. We don't want our engineers that we're paying $500 an hour working on, I have an incorrect value in a pick list. That's not a good use of their time. So we want to make sure our tier 1 support team is handling all the easy stuff. And then by the time it hits our tier 3 or our engineers that are handling platform issues, we want to make sure that those are $500 an hour problems, because those people charge a lot of money and they have to go into the platform and they got to figure out, well, why are these records blanking out? And we do not want to waste their time unless we know for sure that we went through all of the baseline steps before we push it up to a tier 3 escalation. So this page here, let's just scroll to the top a little bit. I just want to make sure you guys understand the sections. When you click on a field, right, and we're in the back end of a field, it gives you a bunch of information about your fields. Here it's saying the field label, the color, what it does, because Farah was really good about putting some details in her description, even though they're not right, but it's great to put a description in there, right? Like make it like tell people what that field is about. That's a great, so one distinction here, the description field is only for us admins on the back end. Mm-hmm. Our end users cannot see what you wrote in there.